If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your feedback will greatly impact our ability to reach more people. Thank you.
What a week, man. I am wiped.
You've been all over the place. Yeah.
I was a Health Evolution this week. My first time. You've been before.
I've been, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I signed an NDA around like saying what it cost. They have sort of a range of what you pay to go to this thing. I think if you're a fellow and you're participating in the sessions, maybe you like don't pay at all. And then if you're part of a health system, obviously like you probably pay less because you're a bit of the attraction to it. If you're an investor or a startup, you pay a lot of money. So for us, it was a lot of money. But I just felt like I felt like I needed to go. I felt like I had a hole in my understanding of it, and I didn't want to continue to have that hole. So they host it in Laguna Beach. It's between the Waldorf and the Ritz, and they kind of have shuttles going back and forth the whole time. And a couple of high notes. So one, the production in terms of, okay, it's a great venue, it's a great time of year, the weather is great. And the shuttles are just totally seamless. It's not pimped out with sponsorship stuff everywhere. In fact, they have the sponsors sponsor the sessions, but like the only brand you see in the hallways is Health Evolution. That's it. It's a very clean kind of conference experience, which is nice because it makes you feel less like you're being sold to. I think they hit just the right size of people. I can't tell you exactly how many people were there, but it's, I don't know, maybe 200 or so. Maybe
it's pretty manageable. I think it's pretty manageable number. Yeah,
it's a quite manageable number. And man, the caliber of the people there is very, very high. Like the per capita caliber is extremely high. It's also not it's not stuck to the brim with health systems. I felt like I saw more payers there than I did health systems, but VCs, startups, chief innovation officers, government people, fair number of government people. And it was pretty, it was a great hallway to be in, right? I was not compelled by the sessions. I didn't spend time with the content. And that was kind of a universal thing I heard, was the content, but the networking was outstanding. And some of the things I heard, like just earshot. I mean, I'm not trying to hear these things. I'm just like, I'm in the hall, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't know, I'm sending emails or whatever, and I just hear something and I'm like, holy, like, what did I just hear? You know what I mean? Yeah,
and they kind of have some good like hangout places. They have like a little, at least when I was there, they had like a bunch of chairs outside, and they have a few hallways and like a little coffee shop. So they do, it's really designed for networking. And then they have the sessions as well. I think they focus on curating the guests and trying to make it really good for networking.
Yes. So those are the highlights, and I think it will continue to be successful. I did hear people sort of say, I don't know if I will pay next year. And I thought about that and I was like, yeah, okay, but then it's my first year. So, I think they probably always have some churn of people who decide, okay, been there, done that. And then there's people like me who are like, haven't been there, need to do that, right? You know what I mean? And so I bet every year they get sufficient cycling of that group. So that kind of keeps the thing moving along. They got a good thing going. I think, outside of the networking, the next value prop, which is presumably the content, is like a very, very, very distant second place.
Yeah, but there aren't a lot of conferences that have, I don't think there are any conferences that have that caliber on a per capita basis. Like just really, everyone's decision makers in their role. There's not a lot of vendors or low-level people running around. So whoever you end up sitting next to or meeting is usually pretty strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So look, I was, my overall thumbs up, thumbs down is definitely thumbs up. I was definitely impressed. I got to reconnect with some people. TK was there, cool. we had a really fun conversation at the end. And it was great. It was great. So kudos to the Health Evolution folks. You've got a really strong brand. You bring together, an important group of people, and I think a lot of deals and relationships are formed at that event. And kudos to you for putting that together. I had a good time. So yeah, I guess with that, you ready to jump in, dig in?
Yeah.
All right, start with the economy. Warsh pledges independence at the Fed hearing. So finally, it is April, and it is time to turn over the reins of the Fed. Kevin Warsh starts his Fed hearing process, and he will summarily be made the Fed chair. Tell me what you think about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's been highly anticipated. It's no surprise. And he spent a lot of time talking about Fed independence separate and apart from the White House. And, I think that's probably his intent. Whether that occurs or not, we'll see. But he is he's very experienced, and I think a great choice.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a hard choice to find fault with. Obviously, it's the president's pleasure who he can pick. But I think if you're looking objectively, Warsh is a strong pick. Okay, now related, the DOJ is dropping their investigation into current Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, and I think this is a bit of deal making here. Like ease off of Powell so we can clear the lane for Warsh to be named.
Yeah, I mean, whether you like Powell or don't like him, I don't think anyone thinks that he's doing anything improper with the building renovation of the new Fed building. I mean, that doesn't make sense. That's not what he's doing. And probably half of the hearing on Tuesday was senators and other people talking about the need to drop that, and really nothing to do with Kevin Warsh, but more just like their worry about the process. And so it's great to see that get dropped. And it's just a distraction, and we need to move on. Look, we'll let Chairman Powell, sail off into the sunset. He did a good duty. He did his, I think it's 10 years. It's a long period of time that he served.
But interestingly, isn't he going to continue to be part of the FOMC?
That is unclear. His term does not run concurrent with the chairman's term. So technically he could stay on the board of governors for the Fed. No chairman has ever done that. So traditionally they have resigned from their board position at the same time they exit the chairman's spot. I think as long as the investigation is dropped, I think it's likely he'll resign as well. But you're right, he could stay on. Even if he does, he's going to be kind of a lame duck, and Warsh will be this.
I kind of disagree. I think if he's on, he's a very strong. I think he's got a coalition on the board. It's not the entire board, but probably enough to drive a 50-50 vote if it came down to it. So I think it would be a big deal if he stayed on. I think it would really annoy Trump if he stayed on.
Definitely would annoy Trump if he stayed on. No question about that. I don't know how much power he'll have. Maybe there's a coalition. I think the Fed process is pretty designed to have the chairman have a lot of power. But I don't have the governance memorized, so I can give it to you right now.
All right, let's do the VC rundown. Amperos Health secures $16 million in Series A funding, unveiling an AI-native denial management solution. This round was led by Bessemer, participation from Uncork, Neo, Sofia Guerrera. Let's see, anyone else? No one else named. So $4.2 million raised in the seed round from Uncork, and yet another financial management platform.
Yeah, it's another rev cycle financial management. They claim to be the first AI native denial management tool. Maybe they are. I don't know. I think we covered one last week. So maybe that was a different division. But there's a lot of AI converts, whether they're AI native or converted, I don't know. But
I think that's terrible positioning. And that's no knock on the company. I'm just like, it's okay to say you are an AI native, rev cycle, but to say you're the first, okay, fine. So what if you are? The second will be out tomorrow. I mean, that doesn't.
Right.
It just doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Tortugas comes out of its shell with $106 million to fund 4 phase 2 stage neuro drugs licensed from Asia. So this is a biotech company, yeah?
Yeah. It's a Series A, $106 million Series A, so significant. The two founders they did a thing called Sage previously with a lot of success. So they're proven guys. And so I don't know. I think it's good. They're going to have a decent amount of money to go license, so, mid-stage and then get it through the whole process. So they're not doing raw startups.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't explicitly talked about this trend, but there's been a lot of buying happening, right? And I remember when I was raising, not so much when I was raising, but I guess when I was starting to deploy Nova Fund 1, it was right when the biotech market kind of cratered, and there were no acquisitions and there was no funding. And it seems like finally, it's almost like no one's really fully tracked that trend. That it seems like we're kind of out of it, but feels like maybe we're out of it. Maybe biotech is back. I mean, there's acquisitions every single week. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's definitely been over the last maybe 4 months, maybe 6 months. There's been a lot of activity in the M&A front. I think people are still worried about the government kind of NIH, investment in new kind of pure technology may not be seeding the front end of the pipeline, but I think it'll work out. I mean, the ARPA-H stuff we talked about 2 weeks ago maybe seems to be doing pretty well. So, yes, biotech seems to be on the way back.
Yeah, and look, the way that these things move through clinical trials, it's like there was a backlog of assets that were probably in phase 1, phase 2 back from, I don't know, 2020, 2021, right? That sat on the shelf because no one was funding, the next round of trials for them. So I think there's a pretty healthy bench right now. I'm not so worried about net new things being started, net new research happening, because I think there's a lot of research that's out there right now. And then when you add in LLMs, I mean, to put some jet fuel on that, I think we've got sufficient research in the field right now. It's time to start commercializing a lot of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Courier Health scores $50 million to scale CRM technology. The funds will be used for further product innovation and to scale the company's reach. So it's a New York-based company, health tech company directed specifically at life sciences companies. Oak, HCFT led the round with participation from Norwest and Workbench.
Yeah, so CRM in biotech, life sciences, is not something that I have thought that much about, because I think of them more about the regulatory process and kind of running the clinical trials, not so much about building customer relationships. But I guess every business needs to develop customer relationships. So this is CRM targeted at that space.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think that much about it, but that's healthcare, right? There's a million specific use cases out there to fund and back. Ethermed, 8.5 million Series A brings total funding to 15 million plus to scale AI prior authorization platform. So is this the first native AI native prior auth platform, Vic?
Yes, I think it is. Yeah, I mean, this is the most crowded field in healthcare right now. I think the rev cycle generally.
Yeah. Lots. So 2 this week already. This is a fun story. So Esther and Anne Wojcicki have backed a new healthcare accelerator called TreeHub. For those maybe not familiar, Anne Wojcicki is the founder of 23andMe, and Esther is her mother, Anne's sister, and Esther's daughter, late sister and daughter, Susan Wojcicki, was the CEO of YouTube. So this is, kind of a powerhouse family of women in tech and in health tech. And this is really cool. I mean, they have a lot of expertise, and say what you want about 23andMe, but there's a lot of lessons learned there, right? Through both the good and the bad that happened there. And I think it's great to have their experience and their network coming on board to launch a healthcare accelerator. And I love to see, women leading this, because, this is going to generate more women being attracted to work in the space and getting the shot that they deserve. So it's awesome.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, we ran accelerators a long time ago. I like that they made it 6 months. So most accelerators are 3 months. In healthcare, it's tough to get fully launched in 3 months. And so they're kind of breaking it to the first half is trying to get product market fit. And the second half is, figuring out your go-to-market strategy and pricing and that stuff. So seems like a good design.
Yeah. And they've paired TreeHub, which is their accelerator program, with an early stage venture firm called AI Health Fund. The article seems to really focus on obviously the accelerator, but having a new fund, in the space is also great. So congrats to them.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the policy segment. So FDA approves first ever gene therapy to restore hearing, Regeneron to offer the treatment free in the US, an unprecedented move. The first feel-good story. This is awesome. They have a wonderful picture here of two children, siblings that were born deaf and enrolled in a clinical trial of this experimental gene therapy from Regeneron. Regeneron's one of those companies, you and I, we know people at Regeneron, and they always seem to be on the right side of stories, whether it's the feel-good side or like the smart business side, Yeah. And this seems to be another one of those cases. So super excited to hear this. And they don't really mention in here what Regeneron gets out of it. And that's probably also smart marketing. But there is no way that they are going to offer this drug for free in the US and not get something out of it, right? A really good deal was cut here for this. And of course, it says inside of the United States. So it's almost like, the reverse of what has typically happened with pharma companies where, OUS, it's very, very low cost to acquire the drug. But inside the US, the costs are exorbitant. It seems like maybe Regeneron is doing the opposite here.
Yeah, no question. It's a great story. I don't know the details of how Trump administration got them to offer it for free, but it's wonderful and good. And so we talk about a rare disease, and I always think that that just means very few people have it, which I think is technically what it means. But it says in here that it's 20 to 50 newborns each year. So it's rare compared to the volume of newborns that are born in the country, but still 20 to 50 a year born deaf now will get to hear is incredible. It just changes their whole trajectory of their life. Yeah.
It's incredible. So cool. Here is made me feel good story number 2. The Trump administration reclassifies marijuana as a less dangerous drug. The move marks a milestone shift in federal policy, but recreational use remains illegal under U.S. law, even as many states allow it. So this is, federal clarity on the medical use of marijuana. It's fantastic. Across the country, doctors are now going to be cleared to prescribe marijuana for medical reasons. And at a minimum, pain at end of life is a great use case for cannabis. At a minimum, right? People want to say, cannabis leads to this, that, and the third. Well, at end of life, that doesn't really matter that much, right? You know what I mean? So, right. So at a minimum, we can look at that one use case, and hopefully we can all agree, that's a good use case for marijuana. But, I just couldn't help but look at this and say, this is one of those things that the Democrats have to be kicking themselves for. Help me understand why the Dems are not the not the ones who got this done on their watch. Yeah,
I agree. The other thing that I think it really is valuable that unlocks is research. So you can now do a true study at an academic center that gets federal funding, which is all of them, about the effects of marijuana. And with the usage, growing pretty dramatically, I think we need to get about researching, end of life, no question, pain, no question. There's a lot of use cases, I think, that there's a lot of value. But I think the truth is we haven't studied it because it's been very difficult to get access to study it because it was, illegal. So now it's legal for those use cases as well as prescription, which is going to be great. They'll take a while to get the results, but we can now start the studies, which will be valuable.
That's right. CMS and FDA announced RAPID Medicare coverage for breakthrough medical devices. And RAPID is an acronym, and so it's all capitalized. RAPID is standing for Regulatory Alignment for Predictable and Immediate Device Coverage Pathway to Accelerate Patient Access to what the agency is calling life-changing medical devices. So these are a certain class of devices, Class 2 and Class 3 breakthrough devices. And they're aligning the FDA's approval and CMS's ability to get those things paid for. I feel like, Vic, it was during the Biden administration where we were talking about the unnecessary static between CMS and FDA. And it's like, why would FDA approve something? And then CMS is like, we have no authority or responsibility to actually make this new safe and efficacious, modality approved for payment. It's like, that seems ridiculous. At best, it seems like the FDA is wasting their cycles on things that can't actually be brought to market, right? At best. And so seeing something like this is very, very cool. And I have to say, another win for the Trump administration.
Yeah, exactly. This just makes a lot of sense. For 50 years, there was a tradition that CMS would cover anything that got approved by the FDA, but then it wasn't law. It just was like kind of traditionally what they did, and they broke from that maybe in like 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there. I forget whether it was Trump 1 or Biden, but yes, getting sort of the two agencies to get aligned, and whether it's rapid or slow, I mean, obviously faster is better, but just clarity. Like when the FDA approves it, CMS is gonna reimburse it as well. Makes sense.
Yeah. Really nice week of stories for the Trump administration and HHS. Moving on to payers, United Health shows signs of turnaround with strong quarterly results. So I have to say it was nice to see this story, because quarter after quarter we've been looking at these horrible MLRs and just being like, geez, this whole sector is just totally screwed. But forget about the earnings, forget about the top line revenue. I only look at one number when it comes to the insurers these days, and that's MLR. United Health Group pulled off an 83.9% MLR this last quarter. It's the best MLR from them in many quarters. And it seems that they have managed to adjust and finally find some footing in this new regulatory reality. And that's a really, really, really strong MLR for the times that we live in. So congratulations to the team there.
Yeah, especially at their size, every percentage point makes a huge, nominal difference. And so getting down to 84, 83, 83.9 is incredible. Really good work.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of quarters there where everyone was over 90.
Yeah,
right. So I mean, 83.9 is that's something to celebrate. Molina, on the other hand, I think the pure government payers struggle more. They controlled their costs, but the future Medicaid spending is in doubt, says Healthcare Dive here. Molina's MLR, let's see, where is it in this article? 91.1. So they're still over 90%, and it's better than the 92% that the analysts maybe expected, but still that is not. It's just not great. 91.1 is not great.
I mean, yeah, I don't think you can continue a business for a long term and over 90.
No. Elevance perks up in 2026, though Medicare Advantage payout could ding profits. Elevance also not quite as good as UHG. But they did manage to get their MLR. Let's see here in this article. It's down at the bottom. Why did they bury that? It's like the most important number.
It's 86.8.
86.8. Okay. Yeah. They bury it. I'm like, put it at the top. Yeah. It's the headline number. Everything else is downstream of that.
Yeah. At least for you and I, if they put it in the headline, I wouldn't read the rest of the story.
Yeah. Touche. So we've got one pure health system story this week. Also, Healthcare Dive flagging first quarter volumes dragged CHS's earnings. CHS had a $58 million loss in the quarter. Expects volumes to recover this year. CHS just kind of a perennially tough story.
Yeah, they have a tough set of assets in difficult locations in my mind. So they're going to be struggling. They've been selling off assets, but it's still a hard portfolio now. So.
Vic, I feel like if we listened to every quarter that we reported on CHS, it would sound exactly the same.
Yes.
The number might change a little bit, but just hearing what you just said, they have a tough set of assets. They're selling off some, but it's just I think you say that every time.
I say that every time, and they got a long way to go. So.
Oh my gosh! All right, Boston Scientific net grows sharply. So this is obviously not a health system, but it's a medical device maker, somewhere between a provider and pharma. The medical device maker cut its adjusted earnings growth projection for the year. The stock at the moment is currently down just shy of 5%. They posted a first quarter earning of $1.34 billion, 90 cents a share, up from $674 million a year earlier. So, look, it seems like they're definitely clocking a lot of growth right now. And I think as all things robotics and artificial intelligence continue to grow, Boston Scientific seems incredibly well positioned. So I'm not sure that the market is doing a great job of setting expectations for these companies, but I think if you're long-term oriented as an investor, Boston Scientific, this is not investment advice, but Boston Scientific seems to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I agree.
2 drugs stir hope for treatment of deadly pancreatic cancer. In separate clinical trials, 2 treatments showed promise that they could help patients with one of the most dire diagnoses in oncology. What's going on here, Vic?
It's another use of mRNA technology, in this case for pancreatic cancer, which does not have a lot of good solutions right now. So they are in phase 1, I think. So it's still early, but there's a lot of excitement around this because there's not good treatments today. Part of it is because there's not early symptoms in pancreatic cancer, so you don't catch it very well. Part of it is we don't have very effective treatments either. So this could be great, but it's still early.
Could be great. It's another week and another Lilly deal, right? This is a $7 billion deal. Colonia, Vivo CAR T tech company, Colonia Therapeutics. This article here from Fierce Biotech is questioning whether or not there are many more robust, mature Vivo CAR T assets out there for acquisition. Again, there's been a buying spree. All of the big, commercialization houses are stocking the shelves and getting ready. It's been a good time if you're in that space. I remember 4 years ago there was so much talk about the promise and why it was taking so long to get these things commercialized, and it's fantastic to see it starting to really happen.
Yeah, no question. There's a lot of applications for it, especially in cancer, but in a lot of diseases. Getting the commercialization and the pricing and go-to-market correct for CAR T is complex, but I think it's great to see Lilly kind of leaning into it. It's the second CAR T asset they've bought this year, so they're definitely. They're coming, as you said. Every week they have a new multi-billion-dollar deal.
Legitimately, there's no hyperbole. Every week.
No, this is $7 billion. There was I think it was 2.3 last week.
2.3.
These are billion-dollar deals.
Yeah. They're on fire right now. All right, one Web3 story this week. New York sues Coinbase, Gemini over crypto exchanges, prediction markets. Federal and state regulators have been sparring over who has oversight of the platform. So, for those who are not that well versed in the long-term storyline of New York and crypto, even going back to Bitcoin, New York has always felt that it had the right to really regulate these technologies, presumably because of Wall Street and sort of its sense of being the financial capital of the United States, and as long as the dollar is the world's currency, maybe the world. And so New York has taken special privileges in creating their own sets of laws, regulations that have always been burdensome to the crypto industry. So this is the continuation of that. I think for me, I just feel like this is picking. It's hard, right? Because we have a picture here of New York Attorney Letitia James, and unfortunately, her and Trump have been so back and forth that she's now, to me, more of a political figure, right? Than she is, a law enforcement figure. It just feels like this is going to go down a political rabbit hole. If they do win, I don't think it's going to have big implications for either of these companies. And I think, if anything, it will drive more fintech innovators out of the state of New York, because more and more fintech is going to run on crypto rails, right? And is going to want to do things like prediction markets and tokenization and perps and these new, the kind of the 2026 wave. This is what everyone's going to want to do. ATSs, things like that. So I don't know. To me, I just sort of struggle with some of the decisions on what fights to pick. And this just doesn't feel like a great fight to pick. But what do I know?
Yeah, that's exactly how I read it. I think it is gambling. And so I agree with the New York Attorney General in that sense. I don't think anyone on those markets doesn't view it as similar to gambling. But they didn't include Kalshi and Polymarket, the two biggest ones. Right. Were not cited in the lawsuit. And so that's just a head scratcher. Like, I mean, why go after Coinbase and Gemini and not the two big guys? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, if it's wrong, it's wrong. And because they're not headquartered there, probably, or they're not. They don't have domain.
No. What I was going to take issue with that you said is you said the two big guys, and Kalshi and Polymarket are not the big guys, right? The big guys are the Winklevoss twins and Brian Armstrong. Right. Yeah. Again, that's the political aspect of it, right? I mean, Coinbase and Gemini, they're like just launching their prediction markets. So yes, in the context of who are the biggest prediction markets out there, absolutely, there's no question, it's Kalshi and Polymarket. But Coinbase and Gemini are the big political actors in the crypto industry, right? And that's why I said this doesn't even feel like on the merits. It's truly about prediction markets and gambling. Yeah. Like it feels like, okay, I'm going after Brian Armstrong and the Winklevoss twins. So
yeah, that take makes it make more sense why they didn't go after the two largest by volume. I didn't understand it before that take. So there's no way for me to understand it without the political overlay. I think you would just include everyone that's doing prediction markets in the state of New York. But you're right, they didn't do that.
And I mean, I feel like I want to be very clear here. You know, if you're a longtime listener, you've probably heard me say this before. This is a frustration that I have with the Democratic Party, right? I mean, I'm looking for a more balanced political environment in this country, period. And you know, there's two stories in here where I'm like, why is it that the Democratic Party was not the party that was behind descheduling marijuana, right? Moving it from 1 to 3. And why is it that the Democratic Party are the ones that have the war on crypto? You know what I mean? Yeah. These are just two sort of stupid self-inflicted wounds with populations that I think across the board, outside of these very specific lanes, would be very aligned with your party, and you send them in the arms of the other party.
Right.
Like it's just like this self-inflicted wound that I just can't make good sense of. So yeah, whatever. On to the AI side of things. For dementia patients, AI can be a good non-judgmental listener. Totally agree. Cognitive exercises offered by a bot named Sunny, paired with telehealth visits, can be physical therapy for the brain. This is the Wall Street Journal. Love this story. Tell me about it, Vic.
I have an investment in this space that is earlier than Sunny, but I think it's a great use case. People in general, we have a loneliness problem in the country. And then as you get older in the demographics, it's worse and worse. And when you have dementia or Alzheimer's, and they talk about it in the story, people around you get frustrated because you might tell the same story more than once, or you get confused. And AI is sort of ultimately patient, and it can sort of let you go through your story and then have sort of gentle prompts. And I think it's a great use case.
Yeah, look, I think it's great. I mean, there are people who are highlighting only the negative aspects of AI, and clearly we do have AI psychosis. We clearly have had instances where AI has been communicating, usually with impressionable young people. But again, you can make specific AI that has guardrails. You can have it under the supervision of clinicians, homeaides, and other responsible humans. So there can be a human in the loop, and it can be a digital therapeutic. You know, it absolutely can. And so this is, I definitely like the bright side stories, and I appreciate you including this in our rundown this week. Okay, now for kind of our more typical stories. OpenAI launches ChatGPT for clinicians, a free AI tool for physicians, NPs, and pharmacists. Hello, Open Evidence.
Right. Yes, it's directly attacking where Open Evidence has been the dominant player. And the list of early adopters is like every good health system that is, has a huge brand, right? So Boston Children's, HCA, Baylor Scott and White, Memorial Sloan Kettering. They came out of the gates with these early adopters already onboarded. And so OpenAI is real. I mean, there are a lot of things, but they're very smart about market demand and marketing and getting their products in the right position. And so it's great. And I think open evidence will benefit from competition. They'll respond, and I think it'll be healthy.
I mean, yes. And I think we need to give OpenAI a little bit of credit, right? I won't lay this on you, but I have certainly been very negative on it, OpenAI, and very positive.
I have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And very positive on Anthropic. And we are, I think, very strong Claude users at Jumpstart, and personally, I think. However, I think OpenAI has responded quite well in the last, let's just give them the benefit of the last 30 days. They have launched, a codex that I think many in the industry who are experts in using the coding tools are saying it's kind of stronger at this point than Claude Code. They're saying that for simple tasks, Claude is great, but for the more complex things, once your code base gets pretty robust, Codex is like shooting the lights out, and Claude kind of struggles with that. They talked about needing to go to the enterprise. We've talked for a long time about how OpenAI was going to have a focus on healthcare. They launched their consumer-focused product, ChatGPT Health. Haven't heard a whole lot about that, but listen to this list. ChatGPT for healthcare, free workspace for researchers, clinicians, and administrators. And it's been rolled out at Boston Children's Hospital, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Stanford Medicine Children's Health, Advent Health, HCA Healthcare, Baylor Scott and White, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, University of California, San Francisco. I mean, that is an incredible lineup across the spectrum. You got your regionals, you got the biggest for-profit, you have an incredible list of academic medical centers, you've got an incredible cancer center there, and fantastic children's hospitals. I mean, that's a fantastic
every geography. List. They got the whole country.
Yeah. I mean, that's an incredible launch list, right? That's an incredible launch list. And so it just feels to me like they have properly responded to the moment. And especially at a time, and they're being kind of quiet about it, which is nice. They're just kind of like getting into a nice cadence of rolling out products and establishing partnerships, which is kind of what they needed to do, right? OpenAI has also released GPT 5.5, and the early responses, some of the things I'm seeing people create with it are incredible, and it even beats Mythos on Terminal Bench 2.0. So, in some aspects, it's as strong as the model that Anthropic will not release to the public right now. So just a strong set of releases over the last 30 days for OpenAI.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I told you this yesterday, but just for the listeners, I've been negative on OpenAI because I felt like they were just all gas, no brakes, and Anthropic has been more measured in how they've sort of rolled things out. And at the same time, just like you, I've seen incredible stories from people I trust on social media that I've worked with and followed in other cases, talking about GPT 5.5 and Codex, where I'm dedicating this weekend. I'm kind of diving into Codex. I signed up with the Pro plan last night. And I think it's just an example for the audience. Like, we have to keep reevaluating how we think about this market every week, every month, or I don't know, pretty often, because it's changing quickly. And the way I do that is pay my $100. And, I don't love paying the $100, but at some level, it's $100 for me to get a good understanding of, is Codex better than Claude Code? And a lot of people say it is better in many ways, and I won't know until I really kind of spend a decent amount of time playing with it or working with it. And so maybe I might have feedback next week, but I'm going to do that this weekend. I haven't told my wife yet, but
yeah, my schedule is a little too bad for me to do that, so I'm happy to farm that out to you and hear from you how it's going. Maybe in a couple of weeks I can dig out of my hole, but I'm glad you're doing it. Now a series of stories really sort of about the layers below the LLMs in the AI stack. So this is one of many stories you could have picked this week, quite frankly, about data centers. But this one from the Wall Street Journal is about Oracle and the debt they've been amassing, and that the capital markets are starting to struggle a little bit in underwriting this wave of debt to build out all these data centers. Now, I understand that. I understand that the capital markets have constraints, right? They definitely have constraints. I also think that the understanding of how this stuff all works is not evenly distributed. In fact, the deeper we go into this, Vic, it feels like it's a smaller and smaller percentage of, I won't even say the general public. I think I'll more importantly say like the professional class, right? I mean, I think finance professionals really need to understand this stuff. And I don't think a lot of them do. But these data center build-outs are going to be a long-term moat that you're not going to be able to easily undo. Like you're simply not going to be able to easily undo them. The amassing of, even if token cost comes down over time, the compliance, the enterprise grade, the high availability, the redundancy, the bandwidth, the throughput, the global routing. It's like there's so many aspects to this that companies are going to shift more and more and more to. And they even if they could buy this stuff, they're not going to have the technical expertise to put it all on-prem. They're just not, And so to me, this is such a smart long-term investment for a company like Oracle. But I think the story is not about questioning Oracle's strategy on it. It's more about like, there are limits to the capital markets and how much of this they can really stomach. And I think we're starting to see some of the the walls around those limits starting to appear here.
Yeah, no question. And the reason I picked this story is it's so black and white. I mean, to me, Oracle should be able to get financing to build out as many data centers as they can. And right. I think that's not just for Oracle. I think for Amazon, I think Google Cloud, Microsoft.
100%.
If you
100%.
run one of the significant cloud, which it's only those four, there is going to be much more demand for inference, not training. I don't care about training as much anymore, but the inference is growing significantly, multiple exponentials, and we don't have enough in the pipeline. It takes a long time to build these data centers. And so I think this year we're going to be in a real crunch as far as inference. Hopefully Oracle will get it financed, but that's why I picked this story. So there's other ones that are not as established as Oracle. Maybe it's like a new data center. I can't think of their names right now, but there's 5 or 6 kind of startups that are not startups, but companies that are building data centers that don't have all the business Oracle has. Right. But those big 4, I think we need all the data centers we can get.
Yeah, and I think people are not yet. And this is why I say like they don't fully understand, right? Because there's so many aspects of this. There's going to come a point where people are rolling out legions of agents, right? Like most people are still at most using the chat interface, right? Like there are very few people who are rolling out these, these MOE models, right? Where they can run off and they can do work for hours and it's agents all sort of having debates and collaborating on work. There's just very few that are actually doing that. And so, but that's not going to be the case for very long. Like pretty soon, everyone's going to understand there are levels to what you can do with these things, And as that happens, as you said, the inference is going to be where the demand is going to be, right? The inference is going to be where the demand is going to be. And so I think, and we have a story here, 2 stories away, that I think is going to make this a little bit more of a national security matter as well. And I think this is where these data center investments will really kind of come into play, especially for highly regulated industries. So next up, Intel shares jumped 20% as AI agents drive big growth. Demand from data centers for its CPUs pushed quarterly revenues to $13.6 billion. This is great. Intel's having a turnaround.
Yeah, and the U.S. owns some of it, which is crazy. But yes, I mean, the CPU usage and every computing chip that we have is going to be sort of put towards delivered inference. And it doesn't have to be a GPU that's super, the latest Blackwell Nvidia chip. Once you're in inference, CPUs are fine. I mean, GPUs are better, but we need everything. And so Intel is selling a lot of chips, and I think they'll continue to keep selling chips.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Google introduces a specialized chip for a new wave of AI computing. The new version of the company's TPU, tensor processing unit, is the first designed for inference as agent boom sends demand soaring, right? So again, we're going to have specialized chips for specialized aspects of the AI stack, right? It's, as you said, it is not all about training. Nvidia really kind of has the market cornered on training. But there are more and more aspects of the full, AI delivery stack, and
Yeah.
TPUs. First of all, Google invented this chip. They didn't just come out with it. This is
Right.
their literal invention. They've always had. They have a very robust global cloud, and look, they're going to serve up a ton of inference, right? I mean, and not just for their own services. They've got that deal with Apple. Yes, it's going to be hosted in their data centers, but like if Apple needs a little bit of like extra flow over, do you think they're not going to be working with Google on that? Of course they are. So I just think this is it's so fun to start to watch this space become a more kind of complex tapestry, as opposed to this overly simple narrative of Nvidia makes the chips, OpenAI makes the model. It's like everyone makes a little bit of everything now, and that's really fun.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Nvidia bought Grok for inference. Gosh, probably late December, early January.
And just really quickly, because there's
so it's not Elon's Grok; it's a different Grok.
Yes, not Elon's Grok; it's Chamath's Grok.
Right. That's right. That's right. And that was a chip designed for inference. This is Google's chip designed for inference. Inference is a very different processing task than training. They're both important, but you train once, it takes 6 to 12 months, but you train one time and then you do inference as long as you're using the model. So I think as agents, both these stories talking about agents, when I do a search on a chat, it's some tokens that I'm sending in and getting back, but agents will talk to each other and they're both burning tokens on each side. And so agents and people interacting with agents will use a lot more tokens. And I've found that you can get a return as long as you design it correctly. And I think that's what these stories are talking about. That's what we're saying, is that more and more business use cases are coming out for the use of tokens with agents and in workflows without agents. So we're going to see more and more inference. And I think we need all the data centers and all the chips we can get.
Yep. Okay. So last week, I gave you some homework. I asked you to go watch the Dwarkesh podcast episode with Jensen Huang. Did you do it?
Yes, I did it.
Okay.
And it was a fun debate to watch, or fight to watch almost.
Yeah, it was. What did you think?
I thought that Dwarkesh was sort of making a point for the audience, but I side with Jensen Huang. I'm an open markets guy more than anything. So I think China is moving very quickly, and I kind of side with him that maybe we don't give them the very cutting edge model, but they're going to do workarounds and open source. And we don't want China to own the open source space and us not have a foot in that camp. That was his basic argument, I think.
Right. And I think that podcast ended up making waves. I remember listening to it before kind of the waves came out about it, and I just remember thinking like it started off really cool. And then it was like, whoa, it's getting a little intense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
right. And by the end, like there was, I remember it kind of turned. There was this one point where Jensen said, no, your premise is wrong. And but I want to come back to that. Right. So it was like, okay, that was interesting. Like he made a note that he wanted to come back. And by the end, he was just like, your premise is completely wrong. I can't get, you know what I mean? And I think everyone sort of recognizes Jensen Huang as like this super cool customer, right? The black leather jackets, the silver fox hair, just just incredibly measured in terms of what he talks about, the way that he talks about it, et cetera, et cetera. And Dwarkesh Patel managed to get him pretty hot, managed to get him pretty hot. And the fundamental premise of the debate was whether or not Nvidia should be allowed as a company domiciled in the United States to send its best chips, not any chips, but its best chips to China, right? Well, that was it, right? That was
Yeah,
the
that was it.
fundamental.
That's the main argument. Yeah, right.
Okay. Jensen's been consistent about this. Like his main thing was, yes, we should be allowed to do that, no question. But Darkesh really, he didn't let up. And so of what was, I mean, let's see here, an hour and 43-minute podcast, I mean, it felt like a third of it was about this one thing.
At least. It might have been half.
Maybe more, maybe half was about this one thing, right? And what I thought Jensen made a very strong case for, with the exception of the fact that he did get heated. And that's I think there's a real lesson in like how important how you say something is to what you say, right? Because I think if you take the how he said it off the table, which the how he said it weakened his position. The what he said was absolutely right. Unequivocally correct, which was, are you trying to say that if Nvidia doesn't sell chips to China, that they are not going to figure out how to make superior AI models? Right? Like in essence, that's what he said. He was like, this is such a ridiculous thing. And if anything, what you are going to do is you are going to trigger necessity as the mother of invention, right? If they don't have Nvidia chips, they're going to figure out a way. Right. And you will take away the ability for us to be that consistent, for the United States to have that consistent place in the AI stack. Right. Like it's simply because of, not because we're not the best product, but because of some regulation intended to protect us, as if they don't have the engineering capacity, the rare earth metals capacity, the manufacturing capacity, the proximity to Taiwan, and all these other types of things to like actually compete on their own merits, right? Like, you know, let me tell you, dude, I spent a lot of time in Mexico. There's BYDs everywhere. Okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like, come on. Like, it's just not a real argument. And so on cue, this podcast happened a week and a half ago, right? On cue, what came out yesterday? DeepSeek V4 preview, officially live and open sourced. Welcome to the era of cost-effective 1 million context length. This was live on X. And when you dig into the tech report, what do you find? It is not built at all on Nvidia tech. It's built on Huawei tech. So this is the first model of this level that has no reliance on NVIDIA's SDK and therefore underlying chip architecture. I mean, you couldn't game, set, match. Right. Like if you were in Jensen's court, you know, a week and a half ago, isn't it amazing how fast these things get resolved in reality? It's 9 days later. And here we have it, a Chinese model, not built at all on NVIDIA, that is very, very, very competitive with the best frontier models that we have in the United States, and truly open sourced.
Yeah, there's no question. It confirms what Jensen was talking about in the podcast. And I think it's a political problem. And so we're trying to solve a political problem that we want to win the AI race against China, our significant competitor as a country, because it would be damaging if we don't win. And I think I agree with that. But the way to win is not to put export controls and limit American companies from being the global best, because things like DeepSeek happen.
Yeah, it's just, at some point, we're going to have to come to terms with the idea that regulatory controls on an economy have unintended consequences. And I'm not saying that they never belong, because I do think that sometimes in order for free markets to function, the very thing they need is smart regulation. Right? It's the very thing they need. However, this idea that you're going to somehow manipulate the outcome of the market through regulation, it's just like, it's so stupid. It's so obviously checkers and not chess thinking.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you cannot regulate your way to an outcome unless that outcome is very poor, which we don't want. And so open markets and then kind of fair rules and then making sure people abide by the rules and holding them accountable if they break the rules, I think that's great. Like, I think we should have an intellectual property law, for instance, just to pick one. No question about that. But that's not like degrading someone's ability to come up with new IP. It's just saying, like, when the game is being played, we're going to be the referees. You can't cheat the rules. That's where regulation, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
Trying to pick winners does not.
Yeah, through limiting access to certain resources. It's like what underlies that is an underestimation of the person on the other side of the table.
Yeah, it's that and hubris of like, there's no way they can do it without Nvidia chips. I mean,
right.
There's a lot of really, I mean, one of the points Jensen made is that they have over half the AI engineers in the world are Chinese, and just as a pretty good numbers. And then we've talked about before, it's worth mentioning again, they're way ahead of us in power, which is sort of, one of the three legs of the stool. You need power, compute, and the LLM model, and they're well ahead in power.
Yes. All right, we're going to end on a fun note. A Chinese robot beats a human's best time in a half marathon after a stumble.
This is kind of an interesting point because it's the second annual robot marathon, or maybe it's a half marathon, I guess. And last year, it was pretty rough. I mean, the best robot finished in like 2.5 hours, and a lot of them didn't finish. And this year, just 1 year later, the winner beat the human record time, and it was very competitive. And so just the progress in a year's time is striking. And of course, They're doing it in China because that's where they make robots. We don't make robots here.
Right. And I think, of course, they're doing it in China because they've come to terms with the superiority of AI plus robotics over human abilities way before we did. I mean, and for anyone who doesn't understand that, you need to read The Coming Wave, right?
Yeah, I don't think, I was just going to say, I don't think a lot of our listeners are not there today. I agree with you, but Americans wouldn't say that today.
No, you need to read The Coming Wave. Like that, like that's the problem. You need to read The Coming
that book's
Wave.
Only 5 years old. But yes, people should read it.
Yes. Okay. Great show. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, it's a good show. A lot changing as usual. But interesting to see the policy wins this week. I think if we could get out of the wars, we might be okay.
Agree. Okay, next week I want to hear your report out on how ChatGPT is faring.
Yeah, I don't know what I'll come back, but I'll tell you what I think.
All right, sounds good. See you then.